What's up, Duelists? MD here, and today I'm going to be profiling for you guys my Cubic deck. Now, though, while not popular, Cubics are honestly, in my opinion, one of the most underestimated decks I've seen in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, the deck came from the movie Dark Side of Dimensions when the main villain, Ayagami, or as I prefer to call him, Diva, this was the deck he used, and there's actually a lot of merit to this deck. Like, even though I said it's not popular and it is underestimated, at the same time, this deck has had some regional placements and even winning it. So, some people do play Cubics and they do play them successfully. It is certainly possible. And it's one of the few decks that actually gains power from the Link era because of the fact that even though I have an extra deck here, you literally don't need the extra deck whatsoever. This is literally just here for those rare snowball situations where you could go into the extra deck if you wanted to. So there's never such thing as an actual need to go into the extra deck. So, enough rambling, gonna get on with the profile. So as you see here, we run 3 copies of Duza, the Meteoric Cubic Vessel, and 3 copies of Vijam, or Vijam, the Cubic Seed. Duza is the main card you always want to get on the field. Whenever he's summoned, you send a Cubic card you control, or not control, from the deck to the graveyard. And once per turn, you could have him gain 200 attack for each monster with a different name in your graveyard. So he can become a pretty big beat stick, but the main thing is that he could send a Cubic card from deck to grave, which is normally going to be your Cubic Karma, or at times your Unification Cubic Lords. But you could also send monsters too, for those times where you would need to send a monster as well. And Vijam, basically he can't be destroyed by battle, but the main thing about him is that he works with Cubic Karma, but also he does kind of come in clutch when you have a bad hand and he's the only one you get. So he can't be, like I said, he can't be destroyed by battle, and if he does battle one of your opponent's monsters, you can place him in your spell and trap zone, and you place a Cubic counter on your opponent's monster. And what Cubic counters do is that your opponent's monster can't attack, and their effects are negated. And you could also special summon him back to the field from the spell trap zone if any of your opponent's monsters have Cubic counters. So that's pretty much it for these two. And also something to be known too for those of you who are not familiar with Cubics, these are the only Cubic monsters you can normal summon. All the other Cubic cards, they have to be special summoned through a certain condition. So, little fact for you guys there. Next up, gonna get into the main win condition of the deck. Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. Now you special summon him by revealing 3 Cubic cards with different names in your hand. So he's really not hard to summon. We run a lot of different Cubic cards in here, so getting him off will be pretty simple. And he's also unaffected by monsters' effects, whose original attack is 3,000 or less. So many of the meta cards currently have no effect on him. Trident, Masterpiece, just so many of them. Can't do anything onto this guy right here, and it's really, really awesome. And when he destroys a monster by battle, he can attack again. And also, at the end phase, both you and your opponent take 3,000 damage. So, basically, the idea with him is to attack to destroy opponent's monster, attack again for 3k, and then burn both you for 3k, pretty much ending the game right there. But honestly, 3,000 is nothing. Matter of fact, a little later in the video, I'm going to show you guys how to easily get its attack up to over 10,000 attack. So, crazy, crazy stuff you guys can do with this. And one other thing I want to add here, even though this is an OTK deck, and OTK decks are not generally consistent, I will admit this is actually one of the most consistent OTK decks I've ever seen. So, just wanted to throw that out there for you all. So these are the other Cubic monsters we run. I run 2 copies of Buster Gundil, 1 Gyara, 1 Vulcan Cubic King, 1 Blade Garodia, and 1 Indioria Doom. Now, I run 2 of this guy because even though he's one of the harder ones to summon, you need to send 3 Cubics that you control to the graveyard. He does a lot. Like, he could be, in a way, your other win condition next to Crimson Nova, because he gains 3,000 attack when he's special summoned that way, and he can make up to 3 attacks. So, up to easily 9,000 damage there, plus more with all the cards we have to boost up attack. And also, if he's sent to the graveyard through an opponent's effect or battle, you can special summon 3 Cubic monsters from your graveyard and add a Cubic card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So, again, he takes a lot to special summon, but he does a lot for you too. So it's kind of worth it. Now, the most of these here, there's literally just for Cubic names. here. Like these two, for example, you don't ever summon them. They're literally just there for different names to help you summon your Crimson Nova. Same thing with really these two, but these two you could at least somewhat use because they're not really too hard to get off. Guerrilla, Cubic King, you only need to send 1 Cubic that you control to the graveyard. You burn your opponent for 800 when you summon him that way. And if it battled, you could target 2 V-Joms in your graveyard, send this to the graveyard, and special summon the V-Joms. So he does a little bit of cool stuff. And Blade Garodia is pretty cool as well. He gains 2,000 attack when he's special summoned by sending 2 Cubics that you control to the grave. And he can attack twice per turn. And when it destroys a monster, you target up to 3 V-Joms in your graveyard. Same thing as a Cubic King Gully. I want to say that's how you pronounce it. Send him to the grave and special summon them. And you can add a Buster Gun Note from your deck to your hand. So, pretty cool stuff here. And that about does it for the Cubic monsters. Now for our other monsters. I run 2 copies of Summoner Monk. This card is super important because he helps you summon your Duza from your deck. And to help not only get your Crimson Nova out, but to also go into a rank 4 as well, if you want. And now for our hand traps. We run obviously the 1 copy of Max C because drawing cards is so important and it's amazing. And also we run 3 copy of Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries. Now I do have cards in my extra deck that I could go into, but the other half of this stuff is literally just some cards for winter targets. Matter of fact, if you wanted to make the entire deck Winter Cherry targets, that's completely fine too. And luckily this card's dropped a lot in price. Now, as the time of recording the brain fart there for a second, the Megatins have not come out yet. So we don't know if this card's getting reprints or not, but this card has pretty much dropped in price. It's like not even $10 now, so pretty cheap card to pick up. That reminds me, I almost forgot to mention, Cubic cards are dirt cheap. Like, you can literally pick up almost everything you need for Cubics for like less than 20 bucks. And we're talking everything. Literally the only card that may cost like $1 or more is Duza because he's a promo for the special edition movie pack. But literally all your other Cubic stuff they're just nickels, dimes, they're so cheap. So if you're a budget player, I definitely recommend Cubics for you. Alright. And that does it for all of our monsters, and now we're going to go into our spells and traps. First off, here we run 3 copies of Cubic Karma. Now, this is the one you always want to send to graveyard for Duza, because when it's in graveyard, you banish it and you search your deck for a Cubic monster and add it to your hand, which is always going to be Crimson Nova. But it has a whole bunch of other effects other than that. When you activate it, you target a Cubic monster, you send any amount of V-Joms you want from deck to grave. So basically, if you send 3 of them, it gains attack. It gains 800 for each V-Jom you send there. Forgive me, even if this card leaves the field, which is pretty cool too. So you could have a Crimson Nova here go from its 3,000 to an easily over 5k. Easily. And that's just with the Cubic Karma. There's ways to boost it up even more. And it does have one more effect, which you don't ever really use, but it's just nice to notice it. During your opponent's turn, if V-Jom is special summoned by the effect of a Cubic monster, you send this card to the graveyard and you half your opponent's life points. It's a really weird condition. It never really does happen, but if it does, it's a really good way to catch your opponent off guard. Alright. Next up here, we have 3 copies of Cubic Wave. You target 1 Cubic monster you control and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. You double your Cubic monster's attack and you half your opponent's monster attack. So I'm gonna go into that thing I showed you guys. So let's say you have a Crimson Nova out here with just a 3k originally. Activate Cubic Wave. He goes to 6,000 attack and you half your opponent's life. So pretty much you attack, destroy that monster, and you attack again with the 6,000. Most of the time you don't even need to rely on the 3,000 burn to end the game right there. And we have stuff like Cubic Karma as well. Matter of fact, now I'm gonna show you guys now that little combo to get over 10,000 attack. So you've got Crimson Nova on the field. You play your Cubic Karma. You send your 3 V-Joms from deck to grave. So he goes 46, 5,400 attack. Sorry, my math's terrible. I still count on my fingers, I know. I should be ashamed of myself. So right now he's at 5,400 attack with just a 1 cubic karma. And then on top of that, because this card does not say double the original attack, it says double the attack. So you activate Cubic Wave, target your Crimson Nova and one of your opponent's monsters. He goes to 10,800 attack. 2 cards. 2 cards and he's over 10,000 attack. So, I cannot tell you how many tears were shed when I was playtesting this deck and my opponents were playing their True Draco decks and I just activated this combo on them. They're just like, what? Like, yeah. Yeah. Crazy, crazy stuff. And also, Cubic Wave does have other effects too. When it's in a graveyard, you can banish it. And any cubic monsters in the graveyard along with it, then you place 1 cubic counter on your opponent's monsters for each cubic monster you banish. So if your opponent has 3 monsters on the field, you banish this along with 3 cubic monsters, and you place 3 cubic counters on the field. So, pretty cool with that indeed. Alright. Next up for my spells here, I run 1 for 1, a Reasoning, and Monster Gate. Reasoning, just to help you summon your Duza or whichever you'd like. And even though if they might call the right level number, because anyone who knows cubics knows that there's only certain monsters that you can normal summon. That's completely fine, because what makes it so good is just the excavating of your spells and traps. So, same thing with Monster Gate here. It's pretty much the same thing as Reasoning, except you have to tribute a monster, which that's perfectly fine. It does the same thing, but your opponent can't like call a level to prevent the summon. But yeah, even though these do have the special summon effect, like I said, they're mainly there just to mill your spells and traps. And 1 for 1, just to help summon your V-Joms when need be. And also here, for the last one of us, we have a Reoccurring Nightmare, Upstart Goblin, and we have a Regeki. Upstart's just for drawing. The Reoccurring Nightmare is just to get your cubics from grave to hand, because not all of them, but a good amount of them are dark ones. Like, even though Duza's light, Crimson Nova's dark, V-Joms are dark. Wait, where did I put my V-Joms? Oh, there we go. Yeah, the V-Joms are dark as well. So you can either get 2 Crimson Novas or a Crimson Nova and a V-Jom. Just stuff like that to add to your hand. And Regeki, obviously, for board wiping. For those certain decks to where, like I said before, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, it's a higher attack than 3,000 originally, so its effect to Book of Eclipse can affect you. So just having the Regeki there helps, not to mention a whole bunch of other stuff that we may not be able to run over. Alright, now for our... Oh, wait. I almost said not for our traps. Almost forgot we run 2 copies of Twin Twister. Obvious reasons. Just destroying back row is always nice. Not so much as discarding a card can sometimes help you, because you can end up discarding, say, a Cubic Karma, Cubic Wave, or just any cubic you might want in a graveyard at a time. So, definitely helps with that. And now for our traps. We run 2 Unification of Cubic Lords, run 2 Cubic Rebirth, and a Cubic Mandala. Now, Unification, you really use it just for its graveyard effect. Even though this is how you would bring out Crimson Nova Trinity, the fusion monster. But we're not going to worry too much about that. Basically, if a cubic monster is destroyed by battle or leaves the field in any way, you banish this from your graveyard, special summon a level 4 or lower cubic monster from your deck, ignoring summoning conditions, so meaning you can summon any of your cubic monsters here. They won't gain the attack, but you can still special summon them, no problem. And it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects that turn. So, again, you don't really use the fusion summon, but I'm going to get into the fusion a little bit just because it's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And for the Cubic Rebirths, it's when your opponent declares a direct attack, you activate this. Your opponent special summons as many monsters as possible from their hand with the same name as a monster that is attacking. But you get to place a cubic counter on each of those. And their attacks become 0 on top of the other effects that cubic counters already do. So that's already pretty disgusting right there. And with that, when that happens, you special summon a level 4 or lower cubic monster from your hand. just like Unification, it ignores the summoning condition, so it can be any of the cubics. So even though at first glance it looks like it helps your opponent, it really hurts them like crazy because of everything you do to them afterwards. And last but not least, we run Cubic Mandala. Now, I won't lie, for the most part, this is just another cubic name to help summon a Crimson Nova, but it is kind of interesting as well. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to read it because this isn't really one I use. You activate it by targeting monsters that are in your opponent's graveyard because they were destroyed in center that turn. You special summon them all to your opponent's side of the field, but their attack is 0, and you place a cubic counter on them. So similar to Cubic Rebirth. And also, while your opponent controls any of the monsters summoned by this effect, negate all monster effects your opponent activates, even ones that don't have the cubic counters. And when the last of those monsters leave, destroy the card. So, not terrible, but it's situational too. Like I said, it's mainly for another cubic name, but if you are able to pull this off, it's actually pretty disgusting now that I think about it. Because it even negates stuff that wasn't even summoned or doesn't even have a cubic counter on it. So, it's insane. Insane, insane, insane. Alright, that does it for the main deck. Now I'm going to go into the extra deck. Well, the first half of the ones that you can actually make. So, first off here, we have a Crimson Nova Trinity of Dark Cubic Lord. Now, this is the one I wanted to go into for a minute just because it's hilarious. Its materials are 3 Crimson Novas, and its effects are similar to Crimson Nova, but slightly more overpowered. It can't be targeted or destroyed, and when this card declares an attack, you halve your opponent's life points. If it destroys a monster by battle, you can make it a second attack, and if you take effect damage, inflict the same amount of effect damage to your opponent. So, it sounds amazing, but it's so hard to summon because you need to have all 3 of them in your hand or field and activate a trap card. But really, Crimson Nova just does everything already for you, so this card for the most part is just kind of unnecessary, but one time, I did manage to make this guy on YuGiOh Pro, and my opponent literally just gave up. Just gave up right after, didn't even try anything else. Because it's true, he is hard to summon, but once you do summon him, it's like one of the most satisfying things ever. And you pretty much win because he's actually pretty OP, but almost impossible to summon. Alright. Next up here are going to be our rank 4s. We run a lot of rank 4s here. Alright. And one rank 10. So we got Gaga Cowboy, mainly just for the 800 burn damage to go on top of the stuff we do with Crimson Nova. Castel Sky Blaster, obvious reason, shuffling a card from field to deck that your opponent controls. We got Karigian. I never know how to pronounce this guy's name, but he's pretty good as well, being able to change the target of one of your opponent's card effects. Dark Rebellion. Now, this is the one I found myself going into the most, because the one combo I seem to always do more than anything. Sorry, I had a hiccup there. More than anything is I start off with a Summoner Monk, discard a spell, special summon Duza. Duza send a cubic Karma from grave. Go into Dark Rebellion, special summon Crimson Nova, detach from Dark Rebellion, halving my opponent's monsters' attack points, attacking with the Crimson Nova, destroying that, being able to attack again, and then going for Dark Rebellion when it's boost up attack for game. That's the one combo I seem to do more often than anything else. But that's just a combo. There's plenty of other combos you can do with this deck. Matter of fact, I actually almost thought about putting 2 Dark Rebellion here, but I thought that was just really unnecessary. And for the number 81, it's mainly for if you're able to get 2 of your Crimson Novas on the field, but for some reason or another you can't attack or activate the effects. Basically, you go into this one right here, and you detach, and it's unaffected by all of your opponent's card effects for that turn. So, pretty cool as well. And last but certainly not least, we actually have 2 Synchro monsters here that we're going to. I have a Clearwing Synchro Dragon and a High Speed Warrior Chambara, because of the fact that our Winter Cherries, for those of you who do not know, Winter Cherries is a matter of fact a tuner. So, Winter Cherries and 2 V-Drums equals Chambara, and we also have Ghost Reaper plus, say, either a Duza or a Summoner Monk equal Crystal Ring. I mean, Clearwing. Please, can you imagine making Crystal Wing with this deck? Be incredible. And now for our Winter Cherry targets. Now, you don't have to run the same targets I run. You could go with whatever your local meta is or something like that, whatever. So we've got Deco Talker, ABC Buster, Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, got Zodiac Broadbull, number 39 Utopia, True King Calamities, and Cyber Dragon Infinity. Now, again, like I said, you don't have to match mine. You can just put whatever is most convenient for you guys to put in there. Now, quick little thing. I don't run Utopia the Lightning, and I pick Utopia instead. Not just for budget reasons, but also I personally feel it's better to hit the Utopia. Because if you hit Banish the Utopia with Winter Cherries, your opponent has no way of summoning the Utopia Lightning anyway. So, you're basically hitting 2 cards for 1 that way. But if you still want to go for the Utopia Lightning, then by all means, go for that. But that's just the personal reason why I choose to run regular Utopia over Utopia Lightning. And with that, guys, the deck profile is complete. Like I said, this is a very underestimated deck. Takes a little bit to get the combos down, but once you do, it's really, really fun. And once again, I can't stress this enough. A jar of dirt is worth more than this deck, so it's super, super cheap. And just, you do not need this whatsoever. So if you're like really, really budget, then this deck's still fine because you can just take out the extra deck, take out the Winter Cherries, and everything else in here barely costs like $1 or so. So, very, very good indeed. And like I said, the video's over. If you enjoyed this nice long deck profile, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I have a lot more coming up on the way, specifically with Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, which I'm really excited to show you guys. I'm just waiting for the cards to come in by mail and trade. But once they do, I've got so much stuff I want to show you guys. And also with Code of the Duelists coming out too. Oh man, I really want to build those World Chalices. But enough of me talking about what I want to build. See you guys next time. This has been Magician's Descendant, and you guys have a great day.